Let's turn now to James chapter 4. We are closing in on the book of James. We'll talk about humility tonight, okay? Now, in this section, James moves his thoughts on living by faith from wise and understanding to the subject of humility. That's not a drastic shift. It actually goes together. Now, the practicality that he brings on the table is actually so simple, we can't miss its meaning. So the subject of humility is a very important one because I think people today equate humility with how you look, with how you dress. Like if a person is dressed poorly, it's equated with humility, although it has nothing to do with it. My initial definition to you of humility is total submission to the will or the word of God. That is true humility. We'll take all of these thoughts and we'll study this further tonight. James 4, starting on verse 1. Let me just read the whole passage and then we'll reread what we need to, okay? What is the source of wars and fights among you? Now remember, he's coming off of the teaching, wise and understanding. So what is the source of wars and fights among you? Don't they come from your passions? Say passions. Okay. That wage war within you. You desire and do not have. You murder and covet and cannot obtain. You fight and wage war. You do not have because you do not ask. You ask and don't receive because you ask with wrong motives. These are good thoughts. So that you may spend it on your pleasures. And then look at verse 4, a switch. You adulterous people. Now remember, these are his brothers and sisters. You adulterous people, don't you know that friendship with the world is hostility toward God? So whoever wants to be the friend of the world becomes the enemy of God. We have a song, I think, that says, I'm a friend of God, right? There's a song like that. Or do you think it's without reason that the scripture says, the Spirit He made to dwell in us envies intensely? But He gives greater grace, therefore He says, God resists the proud and gives grace to the humble. Now, take note of verse 6. It's in the context of talking about wars and fights among you and passions. Verse 7, therefore, so this is now the conclusion, submit to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and He will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands. That's a language borrowed from Isaiah. Cleanse your hands, sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Double-minded is first seen in James in chapter 1. Be miserable and mourn and weep. Let your laughter be turned to mourning and your joy to gloom. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and He will exalt you. Don't criticize one another, brothers and sisters. Anyone who defames or judges a fellow believer defames and judges the law. Look, defaming is equated with judging here on a negative sense. There is one lawgiver and judge who is able to save and destroy. But who are you to judge your neighbor? Come now, you who say today and tomorrow we will travel to such and such a city and spend a year there and do business and make profit. Yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring, what your life will be. For you are like a vapor that appears for a little while, then vanishes. Instead, you should say, if the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that. But as it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil, so it is sin to know So it is sin to know the good and yet do not do it. First, let's talk about misguided passions. Passions can be good, but if it's misguided, it's bad, okay? Let me read to you again, verse 1 to 3. What is the source of wars and fights among you? Don't they come from your passions that wage war within you? That means it's the individual person. It's inside the human heart. You desire and do not have. You murder and covet and cannot obtain. You fight and wage war. You do not have because you do not ask. You ask and don't receive because you ask with strong motive so that you may spend it on your pleasures. I think you have to adapt these sentences from normal conversations like, you do not have because you do not ask. But when you ask, you don't receive, you see, because you ask with wrong motives. Sometimes the translators can be very rigid and lose the thoughts of what they are translating. But I think that should be rendered like that. Now, after we talk about controlling the tongue, because it's like fire, and it's like a rudder that can direct your the direction of your life. Then he talked about being wise and understanding person. Then suddenly, James switched to the next subject, the subject of passion. This time, he's talking about misguided passions. Now, do not forget this context. We are still talking about living by faith. And when a person lives by faith, the passion is always there. Because you have to be passionate about what you're doing. Whatever you're doing, you should give it your best. If you're giving it your best, you're passionate about it. Because without passion, what you're doing will be very rigid and there's no heart to it. And when we talk about living by faith and passion, we are still talking about practical application of living by faith. But if you're doing something even as simple as studying, if you're not passionate about studying, it becomes so bad because you're just dragging yourself, you're doing homework, you know, you have to be dragged out of your bed because you lack passion. Have you noticed our kids, for example, if you say, let's watch the movie that you want, boy, they will even fight sleeping because they're passionate about it. But then let's do your homework. Later there's just no passion, you know. But if you are passionate about something, you really give it all, you know, right, DJ? Yeah. Even friendships and relationships. The complaint of all couples to each other is because they get old, they lose the passion. You know. Well, it doesn't mean that because you get old means you should lose the passion. Because now when you are old and you don't have passion anymore, then how do old people look at each other? You know, that is when jokes are made. My husband smells like soil, you know. He's ready to be buried. There's just no more passion because, again, in that sense, a passion is equated with perhaps a sexual relationship, which is not supposed to be, you know. Passion is a driving force. So when you're living by faith and you don't have passion for God, you don't have passion for living like this, it's going to be dead. I like watching on YouTube these people who go off the grid. And I was watching this young man he lived to build a cabin for 2 years. I was watching that, and all All he has is actually an axe, basically, and a fire starter. But that's all he has. He will go to the town to buy some food, I guess. But I was looking at that. Here's a young man. He looks like a teenager, and building a log cabin, chopping down trees himself, debarking them, drying them up, and then making a log cabin from it. Gotta be passionate to do something like that. Because if you don't have passion, let's just buy a ready-made cabin, log cabin, you know. So, as a Christian, when we get born again, didn't we demonstrate or express some passion for God? Hey, we're going. I'm going to read my Bible, you know. Hey, daughter, son, it's church time. I'm going to read my Bible. I'm going to pray. That's passion. Hey, it's time for church. That's passion. Let's volunteer. That's passion. So what happened to it? You know, comes a time you get so familiar. Hey, let's go to church. You've got to drag somebody. That is a significant change. That means the passion is lost. I tell my wife, I don't know when was the last time she dated me, you know. I will perhaps jokingly say that because if my wife tells me, hey, let's go out on a date, you know, I have question mark right away. Because I was asking, what is she up to, you know? Because normally the moment, where's Anne? The moment Anne says, okay, what do you want? I'll say, I like this restaurant. She will begin to say, why don't we go to this place? Oh, that becomes more doubtful. That means on the way there, she will say, anyway, we are already here. Can we pick up some cabinets? You know? It just kills my passion right there. And I'll say, no, let's just eat home, you know. Because of the ulterior motive. But couples, they don't go out anymore. They don't do the sweet little nothings. They are beginning to lose passion. Yeah. Passion has to continue to increase. Even, I believe, even as you age. I was in Rustan's at one time. Rustan's. It was the premier shopping place in the Philippines before. And no more now. But I think I was picking up some food. And I saw these two old couples. Perhaps they are past 70, gray hair. But they are walking in Rustan's and they are holding hands. I said, wow, you know. Because normally when old people walk, they don't hold hands anymore. One holds the cane, the other one holds the bag or something. But this is, and I'll be honest with you, what about the couples here in this church? I rarely see couples here holding hands. No, I'm not saying go hold hands right now. Please don't do that, okay? I'm just saying, I'm talking, di ba, pagka nagliligawan pa lang, when you're courting, you sit together, you know. But then, when you're already married for a while, go away, you know. As if the passion is already gone. But the same thing is true to our faith. Now, what is interesting is here. The readers of James were very passionate people. I mean, they're fighting. They are having wars. They have desires. These are expressions of passions, you know. But the problem is the word that was used for passion is the word used, is the word where we get the word hedonism. Okay? You know what hedonism is, right? You know, hedonistic. It's a love for pleasures. It's being passionate about your pleasures. So we are not talking about just a zeal here. We are talking about pleasures and delights, specifically carnal pleasures and delights. I'm not talking about ice cream here, okay? I'm talking about because they I think they call this I forgot how they call it, when they talk about ice cream and everything else. Huh? Guilty pleasures, yeah. James readers possesses this kind of misguided passions. One of the problems in America and any developed country where there's plenty is being hedonistic. When you're poor or you're in a poor country, you treasure everything. It is amazing how the rich pick on little things. I mean, we become, how do you call this? We nitpick on everything. This may be a bad illustration, for example. But if John orders, what do you orders with the temperature? Hot drink, right? He will tell the barrister, is it called barrister? Barista. Oh, barrister is a lawyer, the barista, how many degrees, right? Can you imagine that garbage? He will say 130 degrees, 5 grains of sugar, 1 brown and 5 white, right? We become nitpicky, but if you are very thirsty, just give me tea, or give me something. But hedonism loves pleasures. That's why sometimes we buy things because of hedonistic tendencies. Okay? James readers are being now we're talking about you ask not, you have not, starting on chapter 1. I would like to think that this is what happened when you are not wise and you have no understanding. You cannot control what is coming out of your mouth, unless that is this. I'm not gonna go into that. I'm not gonna go into that car. I'm not gonna go into this. Somebody said one time, I'll be caught dead in that car because the car is old. Well, what do you mean? What if you don't have any other car? But when hedonism plays in, it can control your life. Now, how did James know that they have misguided passions? Okay. But by the way, I can talk about a lot of misguided passions. I think for Americans, there's a lot of misguided passions. Like I think, well, for example, regarding food, there's a lot of things that we do here in America that are just, that we are being taken for a ride. A health craze goes on. Brother Willie was telling me this. He said, because at one time, years ago, herbal medicine becomes very popular in the U.S., And I was talking to Brother Willie about that. Immediately, his reaction to me was a warning. He said, don't go there. I said, what do you mean? I said, because it's unregulated in the U.S. I said, what if it's unregulated? He said, a lot of ignorant folks are talking about herbal things in the U.S. and they have no idea what they're talking about. I said, what do you mean? He said, that came from China. And he said, I studied that because he's a Kung Fu master. And he studied herbs because he said, in Kung Fu, first you need to learn how to heal because it's very easy to kill. But a real Kung Fu master can heal before he can kill. That's what he said. And he said, you know, in Western medicine, if you take a medicine, you will take another medicine as antidote for that medicine. He said, the ignorance of the West is they don't understand it's the same thing with herbal medicine. For every herb that you take, it has a side effect. Therefore, you have to counter that. So I said, so what's the problem with herbal medicine in the U.S.? He said, they don't take that into consideration. He said, a lot of people in the U.S. calls themselves experts in this and they have no idea what they're doing. I said, really? So he said, don't get into this. And he warned me. He said, because a lot of the U.S. herbalists are ignorant of these countermeasures. But we become passionate about that. And we go by. Right now, my wife is very upset with my kids because of their passion for boba. Boba sounds like feminine bobo, you know? So, and DJ can be very passionate about certain kind of tea. And I said, what is that? And I think here, people becomes very gullible for every little thing that is being announced. I think I can sell a white powder and say, this will make you lose 5 pounds in 1 week. And people will buy that without reading anything, you know. And so, that becomes misguided passions. Now look at this. These are Christians. They say they have faith. They say they are living by faith. They say that they love one another and they love God. Okay? But then now, James is talking about misguided passions. How do you know when somebody has misguided passions? Number one, it is the source or reason for wars and fights among people. I'm not talking about Ukraine here. That's just crazy, you know. Wars and fights, the language is used to describe conflicts between nations and groups. But it's also used to describe arguments and conflicts between individuals, families, and groups. I think the latter definition is what's applicable here because we are talking about, first of all, in the context, James was just done talking about tongue as a fire. When you are into fights and arguments, and you are really passionate about that, you become a motor mouth. You just have uncontrollable passion to talk. Some people think that the louder you are, the more right you are. Not necessarily. Yeah. Have you noticed when somebody is wrong, they won't let you talk? In fact, they cannot stop just talking and overpowering you with more words. Boxing, I think, is an example of that. I don't know who it was. Canelo Alvarez was about to fight somebody, and a lot of talk. You know, Canelo Alvarez can't talk back to you in English. He doesn't know that much English when he was beginning. So this American, I think British guy or American guy was just cursing him, including his mother. Well, he knocked him out, you know. And I remember after the fight, the opposing fighter apologized to him and was crying. He said, "I'm very sorry if I curse your mother." He said, and I was watching it, he said, "You know, I have lost my mother." It's a different passion that came out. And he said, "I have no more family." And this Canelo Alvarez, he was just trash talked so many months. And he looked at him and he said, "No, you have a family. I am your family now." He said, maybe because the Mexican, I don't know if he understand what he was saying, but he said, "I'm your family now," you know. But the passion just changed. But But the point is, because the guy wanted so much to beat Alvarez, his passion took a different form. He began to say things he should not have said. And that is actually the context of war and fights among the recipients of James. And in the church, we are not exempted from that. Groups, individuals, families engage in fights. This is not physical conflict, I believe. I believe these are arguments that is more on words. The reason why I believe it's about words because we talked about earlier about taming the tongue. I guess especially among Filipinos or Asians. Filipinos mostly because when we are really very passionate about something, we talk too much. And then we can't even control the direction of our mouth. Tingnan mo yan. Diba? That's how you can tell it's a Filipino. I think the Filipinos are very good at that. And then not only do they do that, they made mouth signs, you know. There is the rolling of the eyes, there's the rolling of the mouth, you know. And then if the mouth is not enough, there's the rolling out of the tongue. Yeah. Yeah. And this is the conflict within the community of faith that goes on. Look at this, verse 2. You desire and you do not have. That's another sign of misguided passions. When you keep desiring something and you don't have it. You know, God will give you the desires of your heart. Is that in the scriptures? What if you desire something and you are not having it? It's misguided passion. Because these are no longer just desires. These are desires that are selfish and that fights to control your body. Your desires can control your whole body. Yeah. Your desires can control your whole body. In our church in the Philippines, because of the incoming traffic, because you know it's a few thousand people. So our pastor decided that when the service begins, he tells the security, the ushers, no more incoming traffic, because it can be chaotic. I mean, I remember, I think they closed now, the Bread of Life. They sold the building, right? Yeah, in Quezon City, right? But I remember going there for the first time. The service began, very few people. The worship started, and all throughout the service, even when the service is about to close, the traffic just keeps going. And you know, I thought America is different. When somebody walks in, he just walks in like this, finds the seat, you know, and doesn't care, just fine. And then I'll go there. He doesn't care if he will block people's attention. Philippines is different. Well, Asia, for that matter. When you walk in, excuse me, because you are signaling, I don't want to block your view. I don't want to block your attention. So it's a sign of respect. But Americans are different. I normally see that in American churches. Brother Will and I go to this ministers' conference every year, and it offends Brother Willie all the time. And it offends me too, because we'll be there early and the service will be starting, and then the speaker is already preaching, and then here's these latecomers who are in the VIP seats, and they'll come in and they don't care, and the ushers will usher them in, and it blocks everybody, but they just don't care. And Brother Willie will be fuming in anger. Look at these people. Why can't they come on time? But this time I saw it in this church. It's not an American church, but people just coming in, walking everywhere. It's chaotic, you know. Well, it controls what you're doing. Now I don't know why it happens that way, but your desire will control your body. Yeah. We are having a service at one time, and normally we eat downstairs, and in the other church too. And after I dismissed the service, a lot of people disappeared. Normally, those who are eating. I said, what happened? And it seems like they just disappear. Well, I found out later because Scottie Pippen is going to Montgomery Ward when it was still open. Yeah, that was before your time. He was going to Montgomery Ward, and I think he will sign autographs. And our church members just disappeared. That's passion. It controls. Normally, these are people who can eat, really. But then the passion took over. Scottie Pippen is there. You know, and so the passion took over, and they just leave the church right away. Your passion can control your body. You know, and we have a term in the Philippines, hindi mapakali. You become restless because something is controlling you now, you know. So that's the first thing is you have misguided passion when you have wars and fights. Second is you desire and you don't get it. Third, you murder and covet and cannot obtain. Yeah. Now, the above 2 points is an interesting translation for, actually there's an alternative way of translating it because it says, let me read it to you again. You desire, where's that? Verse 2. You desire and do not have. In my translation, there's a period, okay? You desire and do not have, period. You murder and covet and cannot obtain. You fight and wage war, okay? That seems to be so many sentences, but I prefer the alternate translations, okay? You desire and you do not have, so you kill. You see? You covet and do not obtain, so you fight and you wage war. Now that changes the meaning a little bit. That is actually the acceleration point. The family of Anne was involved in a fight. They are fighting each other against one person. Okay, the one who claims that her dad is her sibling. They were in the basement of my house, and I remember her saying, because she wants more of the inheritance, and she said, I think she will not give in kahit magkabulok-bulok na yan. And they're fighting about this. You know, and there were talks of lawyers. Now that's passion. Now can you imagine to desire something to the extent that you're willing to go to court for that? That sister of Anne, they went to Singapore, and Anne was bragging to me because she lacks the discernment. She was bragging to me. She said, you know, she brought me to Singapore, Anne said, and then left me there. And this Singaporean was taking me out for a date. and she wants to do the follow. He wants to do the. He wants to introduce me to their family and all of that. And my wife was very passionate about telling the story, you know. And I look at my wife and says, "You are totally ignorant." She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "You absolutely have no discernment." I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "She is an older sister of yours. She knows you're a virgin. Why in the world do you think did she leave you in a place like that to be with a man of another nationality?" And she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Precisely, you're so ignorant." I said, "You can't even read it that she wants you to be like her." You see, sometimes you can be so passionate about something, you will do extra mile to destroy somebody. And I have seen this among Christians. For example, after that minister from Louisiana, Gorman, Swaggart destroyed him. Now, can you imagine the passion to destroy another minister? Because I know that Swaggart can sing, and he sold millions of records. He became rich. Got a very good voice. Hollywood wants him. But Gorman was a powerful minister. He cannot sing, but boy, he can heal the sick. He operates in the gifts of the Spirit that Swaggart doesn't operate in. And so there were talks already that Gorman will be the premier evangelist with Miracles television evangelist. Swaggart destroyed him. Yeah. Well, Gorman wants to be on television. What he did was extraordinary. He hired private eyes to trail Swaggart. And one night, Gorman was sleeping, and a call came to him and said, I think around 12 or 2 in the morning, and said, "Reverend Gorman, we got him. He's yours." "What do you mean?" He said he just went in the motel room with a prostitute. He's yours. You can destroy him. Can you imagine that kind of passion? So he called in reporters, and he went there in the middle of the night. And he was coming out, got him on camera. And I was told this, that the guy actually approached Gorman and says, "Please spare me this. I'll finance your television ministry for 1 year. I'll pay for it all. Spare me this." But Gorman looked at him and said, "You destroyed me. Now it's my turn. I will destroy you." That's fights and wars. Yeah. When you have an attitude like that, that you are not willing to walk an extra mile, but you will ruin somebody. These are fights and passions that are very misguided. I was walking to my office in Central, and a group of people wants to leave the church. And as I passed by, they said it out loud. They say, "We're going to leave, but we're not going to leave alone. We're going to drag some people with us." You know, I remember hearing that, and I say, man, they are sinning, and they know they are sinning. They will leave, and they will drag some people with them to hell. That's misguided passion. And sometimes you say we're living by faith, but we are very inconsiderate of others. That is misguided passion. That is actually an acceleration of pride. It totally lacks humility. And I think Filipinos will understand this. This is further accentuated by the next sentence in verse 2. You do not have because you do not ask. That means they have neglected prayer. Yeah. They have neglected prayer. You know, when when Ann and I were beginning to have a family, Ann mostly will be the one making research on the best schools. I have been losing faith on good schools because of the kind of curriculum they have, but I understand the need for an excellent school because of job in the future. And I don't know how many insults my wife has received because of the extra miles she will go to make sure that my kids make it to good schools. Yeah. Well, because she's very passionate about that. But she's very passionate because she wants what is best for my kids. Oh, but there were times she will hear comments that are just very inappropriate. She endures them because of my kids, but thank God she succeeded. But then, you know, sometimes you lack words on how to express this. You don't like others to succeed, but when they succeed, you want their success, but you're not having their success. Yeah. And so now, you don't want them to have it also. But James is saying, you do not have, because remember, in chapter 2, we're talking about the poor becoming rich and the rich becoming poor. Remember that? Don't forget this context now. So now you see a poor person rise up, you know. And when they rise up, you cannot handle it. How can a poor person like that climb up? He can climb up, but he cannot climb up above me. Look, I'm looking at this because we were new in America back then. We have realtors in this church, and my wife and I are talking, how come even the realtors in this church won't tell our members that there are good neighborhoods and bad neighborhoods? I mean, a couple of you have bought properties against our advice, and they were bad neighborhoods. and the ones who sold them are members of our church. You know, I was buying a house in was that Norwich, the first one? It's a beautiful house, 2 floors. There's even they call it an in-law apartment. That means if I want my mother-in-law to be there, she has her own world. She has her kitchen, and my wife likes it. The basement is done. I don't have to do anything. This guy has money, and when he found out I'm a pastor, he likes us. And he said, I would love for you guys to take over this house. And he said, I only have one request. I said, what is it? He said, I will take the microwave oven with me. The rest is yours. I said, why the microwave oven? He said, because that's a very special wedding gift for me and my wife. So we will take it with us. We did not get the house. We were discouraged from getting the house by our realtor, who is a Christian, who is a member of this church. I said, why? She said, it's very expensive. And you know, I and I really believe in God. We believe that if God gives us something, He will provide. You know what saddened me? We were recommended a house by Shores High School. That's the favorite school of Daniel. I mean, Daniel is very passionate about that thing, you know. And you know the sad thing? The difference of the mortgage was just $50 a month. When I found out about that, I said, don't people care that, you know, it's $50 per month difference? Why were we not told? That is when Ann and I begin to really look for neighborhood properties that we keep freely sharing to people. But I found out that there are some people who don't mind you going up, but you cannot go higher than they are. That's a wrong passion. You see? That's a wrong passion. What, for example, if my kids succeed in serving God and develop their own careers, they'll have more money than I'll ever have. Some parents don't want their kids to be above them, their kids to be below them. That's wrong passion. You know, that is wrong passion. You need to allow people to be developed by the Lord. But now you are seeing others have something that you like, and they are having it, you're not having it. You ask, but you not receive because you forgot prayer. And then when you ask, you don't get it. Why? Because of wrong motives. If you want something because others have it, your prayers will not be answered. Because the motive is wrong. Your motive has to be godly. So that's the fourth indication that you have wrong passion. You ask with wrong motives. That's verse 3. So it seems like they finally went to prayer. Oh Lord, please, my brother has this. Why can't I have that? Wrong motive. You see? Just wrong motive. It's like little kids when Joseph and John, because you're just 8 months apart, right? Oh, Anne was on 8th month of their, yeah, 6 months, yeah. So they are, so how many months apart are you guys? Oh, 16. Okay. I don't understand that. Yeah. So they are both growing. They're close at age. And you know, Joseph and John, they were competitors. They don't show it, but they are competitors. In fact, I and I were joking when they were very little. What if these two boys fall in love with the same girl? You know, and the other one get another one, and so he wants the other one. We were talking about that because if they buy something, the other one will be looking, you know, and they want it too. And Joseph always accepts. Well, John is smarter than me. He will say that. So there were times. If John wants something, Joseph wants it, or the other way around. So the way they do it is this: they trick each other. I don't like it. And so the other one will say something, yeah, that's bad. And then the moment they say it's bad, then the other one will take it. You say it's bad, so. Yeah. But they're tricking each other because there's only one item, and they don't want to have what the other said. So sometimes you buy something because the other have it. They did that. My kids did that. They bought something because the other has it. That's wrong motive. Okay. Thank God they were kids, you know. I will not say they sinned. I will just say they were kids. They were stupid, you know. And this is the main reason why we don't receive answers to our prayers. Very important. If you are asking God something, the promise of the Lord is this: ask and you shall receive. If you don't receive, you question your motive. Because you don't have because you ask with wrong motives. Why do you want to have what? Is it to satisfy your own pleasures? By the way, when James talks about satisfying your own pleasures, it has a sexual pitch. Okay? Can you imagine if you say, well, I like that girl, but she is married. Lord, Sana mamatay na yung asawa niya. May her husband died so I can have her. That's wrong motive. See, that is wrong motive. You like a house. Lord, may they not be able to pay the mortgage, so it will go on short sale and I can buy it at bargain. You know. Can you imagine if Anne prayed after Elizabeth said, I'll give you the house. May she die now, Lord. You know. Then that becomes wrong motive. Because the amazing thing is when Elizabeth died, my wife looked like she was the one who lost a mom, not the daughter. Because the daughter was just very quick in getting what she could get, you know. But these are wrong. We have to examine the motivations of our hearts. Why do we want something? Because others have it? If we want something because others have it, that's wrong motive. Now, this is very common, okay? By the way, the struggle of our youth. You know why the young people in America sin too much? It's because why don't you have your girlfriend yet? Why don't you have your boyfriend yet? You're already in college. You're supposed to have one. So you can have one because others have it? Wrong motive. That's why I keep saying, are you ready to get married? When you're ready to get married, then go and find somebody that you can marry. But we do certain things because others have it. We desire certain things because others have it. That becomes misguided passion. Now, misguided passions leads to this. It leads to misguided friendships. When you have misguided passions, misguided friendship. By the way, misguided passions continue because of pride. Again, lack humility. Look at verses 4 to 6. He immediately switched, you adulterous people, don't you know that friendship with the world is hostility toward God? So whoever wants to be a friend of the world becomes the enemy of God. Want is desire. Or do you think it's without reason that the scripture says the spirit he made to dwell in us envies intensely? But he gives greater grace, therefore he says, God resists the proud and gives grace to the humble. In verse 4, James used the term that echoes Old Testament sentiment of God, you adulterous people, referring to Israel. It can be rendered, you unfaithful people. This is in the feminine. So, you adulterous people, you know. This language is covenantal because the use of the word adultery echoes marriage covenant. We should not take it literally as this is borrowed from the Old Testament language. It didn't mean that the recipients of James were adulterous in a physical sense. But now, because they want something, they desire something and they are not having it, they become adulterous in their relationship with God. Meaning their passions, they become double-minded, going to chapter 1. Their passions begin to be adulterated. There is what you call as adulterated passion. You want something because the world have it, and the world will keep having it, and you will not have it because you're not of the world. So you decide to adopt them. We are going to have an electrical engineering society election. And two of my classmates, well, it's a small class, just few sections, two of my classmates were running for president for the EE society. Now, one of them is born again. Both of them are friends of mine. The other one is not born again. It's amazing. The one who is not born again is the one that's closer to me. The one who's born again is not close to me. But the one who's not is closer to me in friendship. Now, the advisor is our professor. And so, in the class, he's saying, so the two of you are running for president, huh? Then he said, the name of the other one is James. I have no problem with James, he said. James can go with us, because he can do the following things. He can drink, he can do these things. Then he looked at the other candidate and says, I have a problem with you because you don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't go out with us. And he's a Christian. Now, he didn't say in defense, I'm a Christian. He said this, well, sir, I can be taught. Remember this. He's a Christian, born again. He said, sir, I can be taught. I want so bad to become president of the EE Society. He said, I can be taught. Well, he lost. But I was disappointed because he is born again. And he said, I can be taught. I can be friends with you. Now, the Bible says, friendship with the world is enmity with God. You know, we have to be very careful when we want something so bad. And the only way you can get it is if you befriend the world and you compromise. You see. Now, James is saying this. That's misguided passion. Because now when you become friendly with the world, that's enmity with God. If you will look at what's that website? TheStream.org in their front page this week. Well, today. There's a placard there. These are supposed to be Christians. The placard says, I love my trans daughter. Supposedly it's a Christian. And so Dr. Brown, I think, or somebody else, wrote that Christians, something like Christians should take their stand and speak up. Because now look, even as Christians are to be acceptable by the world, they write into this. So now, some Christians, they don't take their stand on what is right. They become friends with the world. Listen, you become friends with the world, you become hostile to God. I'll tell you this. All Christians who said that homosexuality is okay, transgenderism is okay, that is love, they become friends with the world. The Bible says you become hostile to God. It's enmity with God. And that is why you adulterous people, Jesus used the same phrase, this faithless and adulterous generation. It's borrowed from Jesus. What James is communicating is how the faith community has become unfaithful to their covenant with God. That is with Jesus Christ. You know, one of the things that we should really be examining is our passions. Where does our passions take us? Now, again, when I talk about passions, we're talking about desires, wants. Where does it take us? Because a lot of Christians, their passion take them to the extreme. They become friends with the world. Well, that's the only way I can get promoted. That's the only way I can get ahead. That's the only way I can be advanced. So we do what the world does. We become friends with the world. When we become friends with the world, we become enemies of God. Yeah. What we should do is meet our passions with faith, motivated by love. Like, we should be passionate in worship. We should be passionate in the basic things of the faith. We should be passionate in meditating the Word of God. Oh, by the way, we should be passionate in our witness. Okay? Remember my testimony to you that the one who is offering to me that he will work on my papers, but I told my wife, I will not take that because what about her soul? I'm passionate about that. I don't want to destroy my testimony. I want to be able to return to the Philippines and say, hey, listen, the Lord blessed me. But I can be passionate about coming to America and showing my friends they are wrong, that I'm willing to sacrifice that. No, you can have both. You don't have to compromise. We should examine our passions, that our passions don't control our bodies. Okay? We control our passion. Because the spirit of the prophet is subject to the prophet. If we cannot control our passion, then that is uncontrollable passion that becomes wrong. Okay? All of us have our own passions. But when our passion gets out of hand, then it becomes wrong. That is a cause of pride. Friendship with the world is an act of pride. Friendship with the world is another covenantal term, because friendship in the Bible is not, hey, we're friends. We use friends loosely today. Friends in the Bible are covenantal friends. By the way, you say covenantal friends, you become one. I was questioning one member of this church before, because it was reported to me, he was one of our leaders. It was reported to me, well, he goes to the nightclub. So I talked to him, I said, I was told that you go to the nightclubs. And he said, yeah. So I said, do you drink? He said, no. I said, no, why do you go to the nightclub? And he said this, I'm the designated driver. I said, what do you mean? Well, they will get drunk, so somebody has got to drive them. I'm the designated driver. So I said, do you stay in the car? No. So you go inside? Yes. So I said, so you see what they see? Yeah. You hear what they hear? Yeah. I said, you should stop doing that. And he said, but they are my friends. Well, I said, you've got to make a choice. I said, because they are dragging you into something. I said, what about your testimony? Well, sure enough, one Sunday morning, we were here, and I saw new members. I know them before, so I shook their hands. I said, yeah, because I saw one of your leaders in the club the other night, and he invited me to come here. What a bad testimony. So now, the idea is, oh, it's okay to go nightclubs with fellow Christians. No, you become friends with the world. That's a misguided passion. And when you become friends with the world, you become enemies of God. And so, misguided relationships result in enmity with God. Let's make it clear. Enmity with God means you make an enemy of God. This is the simplicity of living by faith here. We live by faith. We should be passionate about our friends, but in a biblically guided way. Some friends are not supposed to be our friends, and some enemies are not supposed to be our enemies. Because now when you have misguided passion, your friends become your enemies. Why do you keep checking on me? My friends don't check on me like that. So now the good friends become your enemies. It's misguided passion. Okay? Well, we have to continue next week because the time is now misguided. Okay? So let's all stand. Praise God.